Okay, so to start building this site, there's a couple of things we need to do beforehand to sort of set everything up. We're not going to write any code now because we don't actually have any of the files included. So as we mentioned in the last part, go ahead, download Bootstrap, and whatever your version, you should have 3 folders included. That'll be CSS, IMG for any images, and the JS directory, which is obviously JavaScript. So I'm going to just drop them in there. Now let's take a look at each folder and what it contains. Minus image. Actually no, we've got some interesting stuff in image. So in the CSS folder we have got Bootstrap and Bootstrap responsive, and then we have minified versions of each. So minified versions you're going to use in a production environment where you have either made change, where you have finalized your CSS file and it's minified, ready for a fast download. So the unminified will look like this, readable, and the minified looks like this. So it's all on one line and it's all sort of squashed together, and all sorts of stuff has been done to reduce the file size. So in this case, same with the responsive, we're going to be including both of these CSS files because we want to make use of responsive elements. So inside JavaScript we've got Bootstrap, and the same deal, it's just a minified version. If you've customized this, all of your plugin data will be available in JS, otherwise you're going to have to download them separately and include them at the bottom of your page. Probably a good idea if you're only using a particular plugin on one page and you know you only will be. It just makes a lot more sense to only load it on that page rather than download it with the rest of your JavaScript. However, just saying that is preference, and some people prefer to download everything, cache it by the browser, and then have it served for every page, and it's there and it doesn't need to be re-downloaded. So inside IMG images, we've got the glyphicons, which are part of the Bootstrap package. They weren't created by Bootstrap; they're by another company essentially, but they're being given permission to use them. So these would basically just be an icon set that you can include icons with, and they'll just be as CSS sprites. So that's basically that. And we'll be looking at including some icons as well. And just a word of note sort of thing, we're going to be inspecting elements as we go, so you're going to sort of see the associated CSS, but it's really good idea that when you're working with frameworks like this that you understand how they work and what style rules are being applied. So it's a good idea to inspect things in your own free time. Okay, so cool, we've got nothing at the moment inside index.html. So what we're going to do is we're going to build our overall sort of HTML document outline, if you like, with our doc type, our HTML and head and body tags. Then we're going to go include what we need, and then following that we'll just start to create our site. So what do we need? Well, we need our doc type, so let's go ahead and include doc type, and we need HTML tags, opening and closing. So head is important, body is also important. I'm sure you already knew that. Let's go ahead and just set up a few things. So I'm going to set the character set to UTF-8 in case there are any special characters, and we'll go ahead and set a title as well, and we'll call this responsive. Lovely. So inside of the in fact, let's go ahead and include our style sheet. So we're going to need to include 2 style sheets. The first one is bootstrap.css. The second one is bootstrap responsive CSS, which allows us to take advantage of the responsive nature of our fluid grid system. So we're going to say link rel equals style sheet, and href is the link to this, which is in the CSS directory, and it's just bootstrap.css. We can go ahead and copy and paste that down to the next line and include bootstrap responsive also. Now in the body we need to go ahead and include firstly the link to jQuery, wherever that's being hosted. I'm going to take advantage of jQuery CDN and have it come from there, and then we also need to include another script tag, and we need to include within the JS directory bootstrap.js. Perfect. So if we go ahead and refresh our page, nothing's changed, but we are now including particular rules that are associated with with Bootstrap. So if we inspect the body, for example, you can see that we've got these styles associated, which wouldn't normally be associated if we hadn't included a framework like Bootstrap. Cool. So now what we need to do is, because we're making use of the responsive nature of Bootstrap, we need to include some meta information regarding the width of the device and stuff like that. So we need to say meta name equals and content equals. Okay, so we're going to set the view port meta tag to width equals device width. Oops. And we're going to say initial scale equals 1.0. Perfect. So we're pretty much ready to go here. All we need to do is start writing our markup for the site and you know, including everything we need to do. So this isn't going to take long at all. So that's how we set everything up. Everything should be working now, and we can go on to actually start building this site. Okay, so we're now going to build the navigation bar at the top, so the sort of header of the site. This is going to be fixed to the top of the site as we saw in the earlier example. So let's go ahead and write the markup for that. So the container, overall container, we're just going to create a div. If I can type properly, and the class for this is just going to be navbar, so that's the standard class for this, but we're also going to add an additional property which is going to be navbar fixed top with hyphens in between. So this is going to fix it to the top, which means any content that's when you're scrolling down the page, everything's going to go under it. So it's basically a fixed position. So inside here we need to create another div, and this is going to be nav bar inner. Lovely. So the last thing to do in terms of the structure of this is to create the container inside, and this is going to sort of center everything. If I was to type some text in here now and refresh, you see that we've got all the styles, we've got this nice nice color, bit of gradient going on and some shadow under there, but this text is right over there. We want to keep it sort of at the width that we've specified. You can change widths in the customize, but I'm just working with the default. So as soon as I set whatever my content is going to be within this main container, and it's just container, so if I type text in there, then you see that that moves to where the width of my entire site lays. So good. Now let's go ahead and create the sort of logo of the site. So by default this has a class of brand, so let's go ahead and give this a class of brand. href, I'm just going to go a hash, and in here I'm just going to type the name of the site, so I'm just going to call this responsive. Perfect. So when I refresh, you see that the stars have been applied to this. I think we've got some kind of we've got a text shadow to make it look a little bit inset, and all these things. You can go ahead over to the bootstrap.css file and just change all this, change the font, use some imported fonts, whatever. Cool. So now let's move on to slightly more complicated, which is the navigation. So we create another container here. So the class for this is going to be nav collapse and then collapse. So this is the navigation that we can, when we reduce the size of it, this will sort of come down and up and everything like that. So the reason that we've given these classes is basically so we can target them with this JavaScript functionality, and you'll see how it all pulls together in a moment. It basically means that we don't have to write the same markup twice. The JavaScript will grab everything and place it within that lovely list, and everything will be looking good. So let's go ahead and create our unordered list. So as we'd usually expect for menu items, we use an unordered list with list items in between. But this time I'm going to go, well, not this time, I'm going to go ahead and give a class of nav to this. Now by default this will sit next to the branding that we've created up here. So let's just add in some links and then we'll take a look at how this looks. So I'm going to say home. And then I'm going to say about us and contact. Cool. So let's go ahead and refresh and see how this is looking. It looks quite nice. We've got some hover effects. So let's inspect these. Yep. So you can see we've got hover rules here. Lovely. So now we need to set this to the right hand side over here, and we need to sort of toggle the selected state or whichever item we're on. And we can do this by adding a class to each list item, or not each list item, one of the list items, and that's just active. So that's pretty global across everything. So if you have any elements where things can be active, then the class is just active on the list item, and that applies to a lot of components in Bootstrap. Okay, now let's go ahead and put this to the right hand side, or float it to the right. We have some sort of helper classes in Bootstrap, and one of them is pull right, and you can obviously guess we've got pull left as well. We don't need to do this in that case, or do that in this case, so we just pull it right, and basically this just puts it over there, and you can see we've got this lovely inset shadowed effect on the selected item as well. So if we were on the about us page, we could do some back-end magic and put this class onto here. Great, so we have now built this header. Now let's take a look at what happens when we resize it. Wow, we don't have this lovely magic button we saw in the first part of the tutorials. So we need to go ahead and build that functionality in, and it's fairly straightforward. We don't need to duplicate any of this code, which is brilliant. But above the branding, let's go ahead and create just an anchor. Okay, so the href we don't actually need. We're not going to have this as a clickable link that's going to go anywhere. We just want it to toggle some JavaScript functionality. But we need to obviously give it a class, and that's going to be btn. Now, this is a generic class that we can give to any button. So let's go ahead and refresh this and just pull this in a bit. So there you go, not looking too good at the moment because we haven't, set it up to work very well. But let's go ahead and change some of the code here. So we need to add another class, and this is going to be btn navbar. So this is going to, well, we'll look at the styles in a moment, but this is going to say, yeah, we know we need to float it to the right, and it needs to be, certain margins and everything like that. So that's how that is all set up. Now what we need to do is apply some kind of, well, it could be text, but I'm going to include an icon. So I think by default, the icons that they give are like 3 little lines or something like that. But I'm just going to sort of change this up a bit, and I'm going to say span class equals, I'm going to say icon hyphen, and then choose from the list of icons on the Bootstrap website. So you'll find these, so go ahead and take a look, but I'm going to use thlist. So when I refresh, I've got this lovely icon in here, and that works from the glyphs that we saw in the image directory. So if I double click on that, oh, not double click, what am I doing? Oh, this is awful. Can we not see that? Let's go to network instead. There you go. So they're being loaded in, and we're just using the one that we need. Cool. So now that that's working, we don't have this JavaScript functionality. So I'm clicking on it at the moment. Nothing's happening. We want this menu that we've got here to roll down, but it's not working. That's why we gave the class names that we did, so we can set some data attributes here. So I'm going to say data toggle equals collapse, and I'm going to say data target, so this is where we're picking everything up from, is nav collapse. So that's going to pull in everything from there, and it's going to make it like this. Lovely. So we can now choose these options. So this basically means that when we add more items to this, we don't need to worry about what happens here because it's pulling in the same content. So that's the navigation bar that we've created. Fairly straightforward, and we've got a little bit of functionality in there for when the viewport's resized. We're now going to work on tidying up, or we're going to modify the bootstrap.css file a tiny bit because of an issue that we'll see in a moment, and we'll go ahead and create the rest of this, namely the big hero unit thing.